Welcome back to the things we know. Today, we are talking about something that touches every single woman we know, which is friendships. How we make them, how we lose them, how they can sustain us in midlife, and why these relationships shape so much of our joy, our belonging, and our identity. And I'm especially excited because my friend Rachel is here with us today. Rachel and I were in a play group when our oldest, who are 23 at this point, were just babies. So I'm so excited, A, that we're still connected, and I'm super psyched about this extraordinary work around women's friendships. As soon as I heard about it, I was like, oh, good Lord, you have to be on the pod. So I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you.
And Rachel, I just want to say it's so great to meet you already. And I will tell you this morning, I texted Lisa at like a very dark hour and I was like, I can already tell you this is going to be my favorite episode of the year.
She's like, it's all downhill from here.
Lisa speaks so highly of you. So we've been looking forward to this.
All right.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about Rachel. She's had an extraordinary life. So Rachel is an entrepreneur, a former private investigator, which kills me every time I hear that, and the founder of the Best Friend Project, a national survey and storytelling platform which is focused entirely on women's friendship. She's launched beauty and wellness brands into major retailers. She's written on women's health and built campaigns for companies across multiple industries.
Mm. The Best Friend Project was born from Rachel's own loss when her best friend of 12 years ended their friendship with a single text. Wow. Rachel realized something was missing. We have endless resources for romantic relationships, but almost nothing to help us navigate friendship fractures. So today, she's gathering hundreds of women's stories and turning them into a forthcoming book and podcast about the science, heartbreak, and humor of platonic love.
Yay. Oh, Rachel, so psyched to have you here.
Even just hearing you repeat it back gets me, you know?
We almost always ask that question first. Like
That's
when
awesome.
we say back your bio, because
Yeah.
it's one thing, right? Like transparency, everybody sends us their bio, just like any speaker. You send a bio. But when you hear it back, I mean, obviously it made you a little emotional. Like what comes up for you?
Just the text, and getting that
Yeah.
text. And I mean, it
Because it's
was,
been about a year. Is that right?
yeah, it was a year in September. I mean,
Okay.
I don't remember any of my like siblings' birthdays. And I remember the date where I was standing, I mean, it was gutting.
Yeah.
And
I
it,
mean,
and it
it's
came out
stunning
of
when you tell me. I mean, you've told me the story. We've talked about it in a couple of different ways. And every time you tell me the text, it like physically hurts my heart.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It was gross. Only because we both could have been better. And that's where really the genesis of the project came about. It wasn't, I want to show that I'm a better friend or I was the right one and I'm the victim. None of that. In the reflection, it was really me going, how could we talk about money, sex, kids, dreams, our passcodes, where the bodies are buried? Like we knew everything about each other and yet couldn't talk about some things that were just starting to get under each other's skin and really eroding what I would say, trust.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of in that gap became the distance and then the silence. And then, you know, and that is where the piece I own, I could have been better. I wish that I hadn't been quiet about it, before the text happened. I remember I had reached out to her because, she just kept being busy. And in all this time, we had never been too busy for each other.
Mm.
She was the ride or die. She would answer on the first ring or answer just to tell me she couldn't talk or call back before listening to the voicemail because she noticed that I had called. And so all of a sudden she's too busy. And, I just finally said it in all these years, we've never been too busy. I'm here if you want to talk about anything. And then I didn't hear from her for a month.
Mm.
And then we had tickets to an event. So I reached out and was like, are we still going? What's happening? And then her response was, this friendship is over. It's non-negotiable. And
Are you willing to say the line? Because that's the line that gets me every time. Or should I say it if it's too hard?
the friendship with me is like death by a thousand cuts.
Can you even?
wow.
I mean, I can't. I can't. And what's amazing in what you're saying, I thank you for saying how this was the catalyst, because this isn't a revenge tour. This is actually out of love for yourself, out of love for trying to figure out how to do this differently, better, braver in the future. Um, and you're taking your own responsibility, but you also want to figure out why, because again, and we'll obviously be timing out this throughout, you're already getting such an amazing response. So
Mm,
this lands for so many women.
yeah. I would say every part of me is lighting up right now too. Just hearing, like when I was
Mm,
reading that part, ended the friendship in single text, I felt my own voice hitch. I don't know how
Hmm.
anyone with any type of relationship could read or experience that or hear that without feeling that.
yeah, thank you for saying that because it was, so cavalier in that if we had been dating and that was my boyfriend or my spouse, I would have been like, okay, we would
Right.
see each other, we'd talk about it, I'd get closure, I'd like whatever. But it really sent me on this spiral of, because of course my response was, where is this coming from? If I've said something or done something, I want to understand it. I love you. We've always had this thick sense of skin and, great senses of
Mhm.
humor. It's what I love about you. But if something has gone awry, I really want to understand it. And and then it was a silent treatment for 3 months. And that in that silence, I spiraled from, I never will have another friend again. This is not
Mm,
worth it. I cannot be blindsided like this, to going, were we even friends? Like
Mm.
maybe I'm just this sort of loser. And
mm,
then looking at all my other friendships, which, I do want to clarify, I have a ton of people I know. Of them, I've got my cluster of friends of the friend, and you don't want to like rank your friends, but there's just, you sort of have a natural go-to person that you turn to, for this issue or that issue. And sometimes that person is the same person and sometimes it's multiples. Um, but she was sort of that catch-all friend that would be there for anything. And then I started going like, well, was I there for her enough? Is she going through something and I was too self-absorbed and I didn't notice? Or and the spiral, you guys, I mean, it was like a high school breakup, like a crushed, destroyed. I was found myself like weeping at night,
mm,
Yeah.
talking to my husband about it, talking to my therapist about it, sharing in my Al-Anon group, really just trying to understand what is a friend and how am I not a good friend? What could I do differently? And I ended up, I didn't talk to anyone about it other than these groups. When I did finally share in my Al-Anon group, someone came up and said, I've heard a lot of awful things in these meetings, but that's one of the worst because I don't know what I would do without my best friend. And I was
Wow.
like, not helpful,
Yeah, totally. Validating, but also painful.
yeah,
Yeah.
like so happy for you. But then another person came up and said, that happened to me and I don't talk about it. And then I started sharing it about, every single person I talked to had a version of it or knew someone
Yeah.
that had a friend collapse in that way. Um, and putting the survey together was really, really difficult, largely because I just kept having to walk away,
Mm.
um, because it just was so intense for me.
How quickly did you start working on this after
Uh,
the breakup?
it was about 4 months where I
Okay.
finally just started putting pen to paper about it, and really journaling and being mindful in my research. In the absence of research for platonic support, I was like, okay, maybe there's some reason that this is happening. Um, and through this experience, we can open up a national conversation
Yeah.
about support
Mm.
for
can
platonic.
you said she was silent for 3 months. Did she ever give you any answers?
I ended up accidentally. So in my favorites on my phone, it goes like my husband, my children in birth order, her,
Mm.
and then my family, you know. And I was going to reach out to my son about a recipe. And so I called, you know, I tapped him and then looked at my phone and I'd actually tapped her number. And so I'm like, and call, and call, and call like hot potato. And so then I quickly texted her and said, disregard, I didn't mean to text you. And this is almost the worst of it
Yep.
because she wrote back and said, you know, and I said, you're still my favorites, just disregard, you know, I'll take you out of my favorites. And she wrote back and said, well, you're still my favorites and always will be. I just needed some time.
Wow.
And had she
Makes
said
me
that
so
initially,
angry.
well, it was like I have been through fucking hell.
Yeah.
Like I have reevaluated like so many things about me, my life, my childhood, my friendships. You know, do I have a friendship type? I clearly didn't marry the right person the first time because I had a dating type, had to break that, learn about that. You know, I'm all this stuff. And just this cavalier response of, oh, and then when I said, like, well, hang on, not so fast, like this has been horrible for me, she was like, oh, I was just busy. I didn't even realize how much time had passed, which I almost threw my phone across the room. I'm like, so I'm just disposable?
Mm.
And that was where the real just like, what the fuck? I mean, maybe we weren't even friends, which is delusional because we were,
Right.
you know, but
Right.
that's the at least like the it's like gaslighting
Yeah.
myself on what even is this, you know, what sort of control weird, I don't even know what, but it's really, you know, through then because, you know, super mature, I texting and then we switched to email because we're so tough. No phone calls, no, you know, but I just was like, we're good. Like, because I was hurt,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
It's
so,
no, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, that's when I just started going like, I need to really learn about this, my role in this. My husband and I have a rule like nothing is 0, 100. You know, even if
Mhm.
it's 1% my fault, and I come to the table saying, okay, I own the fact that I came home from work today, you know, and I, you know, walked into you in a furious mood and blah, 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 or whatever it is. There's got to be an accountability on everything. And the ensuing conversations with us were always a yeah, but. And had there been some accountability, like for her, like, hey, I was in a really dark place and you had just gotten married and it seemed like we were in different spaces and it was hard for me. I would have been like, okay, I get that. Now we're getting somewhere. But
Yeah.
everything was, you know, I'm sorry I didn't call you or I'm sorry I didn't respond, but you that, but that, da. And it was like, okay, you know,
Yeah. Well, yeah, what I was going to say is it's so female too for us to go, what's wrong with me? Instead of, and I don't just mean only women do that, some men would too. I just mean it's the more feminine versus a lot of the masculine is like, your loss, you know,
yeah,
and like
yeah.
what a caring, kind friend I know you must be for you to go, what kind of a friend am I? And just how
But
deeply that caused your suffering.
Yeah.
yes, and but by the same token, women, I mean, we talk about this all the time. Women heal in community. Women are in community so differently than men that yes, it's such a feminine thing to take a responsibility and what's wrong with me. Um, but we want these relationships to evolve and stay in our lives sometimes, right? So
Mhm.
it's worth that exchange, right? Whereas men don't have that experience. Men do, okay, you're lost. Well, that's the level that they are friends with people to some extent, right?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's the way they protect themselves too. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, you
Absolutely.
went through hell, but you're probably in a better place for it. But
Right.
because it sounds like you cracked yourself open for it, and I'm so sorry that happened. That is,
Yeah, it's icky. And you know, it's funny you bring up men, Lisa, because there is a question on the survey about male friendships.
Hmm.
One of the challenges in writing the survey is I really wanted this to focus on women friendships. You know, I'm a woman, my friend is a woman. However, I say that because old me, I had more guy friends than I had girlfriends. And I'm kind of a guy, like I was raised with brothers. We are funny as a family. We don't really talk about feelings because we make jokes that, like when I got married, my husband was like, I can't get over how you talk to each other. And I was like, how do we talk to each other? Like,
Yeah.
it's just normal to just, completely obliterate somebody, but it's funny. And we love each other. So that's where it does, it's fine. But I didn't want to have a lot of people take the survey whose best friend was a guy, because that dynamic is so different.
Right.
And so trying to, say that up top was a challenge. But it's funny, Lisa, when you talk about women healing in community, of the surveys, and by the way, blown away by the responses so far to this. And I haven't even launched it on social media or anything. But of the couple hundred people who have now taken the survey, 66 say that they are conflict averse. And yet 82 say they crave honesty and value vulnerability. But 74% say that of their friends, like the traits about their friends they're not crazy about, is that they think their friends are judgmental and too sensitive. So how do we succeed as women friends if we're like, we don't want you to judge me or be sensitive, but we want you to be honest and vulnerable, but we don't really want to talk about
it. Right. And we don't want to tell you what we're really thinking.
Right.
Yeah. That's tough.
So yeah. And the thing that kills me, and one of the markers for why I was like, I wanted to do the research on this, so many studies, and we've all heard them, you see them on memes and blah, blah, blah. So many studies will say that women with close friendships are happier, healthier, less depressed, live longer. Great. How do you find friends? How do you make them? How do you keep them? And when and how is it appropriate to let someone go?
Yeah.
And that really, when I started just saying that, I was like, I have to do some research on this. And, as a journalist and a former PI, this is where I go. I also feel comfort in data, and I like to be the journalist covering the story, not a part of it. So I think this is another thing that I need to self-reflect on. Like, it's easy for me to study this, but the next step will be to actually put into practice these things. And, a lot of that is what is shared on the podcast from other people's stories and then my own things.
This is so good. I think this is going to be just like
huge,
make such an impact. Okay. I do want to talk before, because we're going deep here and I love every minute of it. I want to talk about mine and Lisa's experiences with the survey, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. Absolutely.
Just because I started it last week, and then something happened with my phone, and then I went back to it, and I just didn't expect how much it would stir in me. It was kind of like, cool, this will be fun. And I think I even told you in some of my answers, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. Like, am I supposed to be focusing on one friendship throughout, or is it okay if I respond to the different types of friendships in my life, but either way, as I moved through all these women who shaped different seasons of my life, it got very emotional for me. Like, at first, very grateful and reflective and a little sappy. And then, then just, you frame the questions so well. Then just some really old wounds came up and made me want to reach out to the women I loved, but also reflect on people maybe I, leaned away from instead of leaned into. Because I realized I've always had a lot of dear friends, and I've rarely been a just you and me best friend kind of person. I've been in a lot of trios. I don't have a giant circle of acquaintances because I don't know how to small talk. So it's like the people in my life I become friends with, we go deep pretty quickly. And I also noticed this tiny old twinge in myself when I looked at the fact that I'm part of groups more than, and I do have obviously I have Lisa, I have the people that I've met over the past few years who anyone who can text with me really well because of the way things are in my life. And I sometimes can't talk on the phone. Is just a ride or die kind of person. And that's Lisa at 5 a.m. But I noticed this twinge in myself when a one-on-one plan, because I do love one-on-one because I can go deep with someone and really catch up on how they're doing and I can be vulnerable. When it turns into a group plan, when they want to add people, which is a total natural thing to do. I sometimes have an old familiar twinge of, am I not enough? So your survey made me realize that a lot. Anyway, I could go on and on. There's a lot there that came up, but those are like the top of mind things.
That's really, really interesting. And I've never heard it said that way. And I have had people say, well, wait a minute, I thought it was just the two of us. But as a, I mean, I used to have a little kid, we all did. But I would feel like I needed to maximize any social time I had because I had such limited free time that it was like, let's all get together. So that's really interesting because I've probably made people feel like that without even knowing it.
I mean, I've done that too with my limited time. So it's weird how in reverse, I would sometimes wonder if I'm not exciting enough.
Yeah. That interesting.
And I took it in a different light. I mean, you and I have been talking about this off and on for a couple of months now. And so when you sent it to me, your instructions were like, see if there's any spelling mistakes. And so I kind of did it from that sense. I mean, I filled it out, but there was we talked about this off camera about taking it again, and I could see maybe doing that. Although, because you get your responses back, I've looked at my responses several times up until talking about this, and other than not filling out more extensive open-ended questions, they're all pretty much still spot on. I think I've always lived in this space. I don't know. I'm trying to think back even like as a kid. Like I changed schools when I was in the third grade. And so I was in the third grade and I had a certain level, a certain set of friends. Fourth grade, I started a new school. And so I'm the new kid. Then high school, all these schools are back together, but I still meet some new people. So I'm thinking back to my friends and I'm like, when I think about it, I have, to your point of the circle, like the circle of friends and how it goes out, like I've got a good friend from sort of every area of my life. Like I am still really good friends with my friend Laurie that I met when I was 17 years old. I'm still really good friends with my friend Genevieve, who I met when Charlotte was 4. And then Carrie's that person in my life now that I can't imagine she's not always going to be in my life for the rest of my life. So when I look at the people that have faded away or are maybe on that next tier, it's not that I don't care about them. It's just whatever, situational. I don't have any regrets or any real tinges. Like there's no, even one Carrie and I were kind of speaking of earlier today over Instagram, because we have a million ways of talking. I was like, okay, so this idea of a friendship fade, like this person in my life is a friendship fade. At the time, we were close, and it was again situational, made total sense. Not like that anymore. It's like, well, that's too bad, but I get it. So I guess classic me. Sometimes I'm like, do I have any feelings? But like classic me, I'm just like, everything's fine. It's fine.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some people, like I soft launched this at the Reese Witherspoon event, her Hello Sunshine event in Los Angeles. And I've been putting these signs up in bathrooms all across like the country, everywhere. I'm in Dallas, but I also live in Minnesota, all over. And so that's how people have been finding about the survey. But Lisa, to your point, some people are like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like I have great relationships. We're all still friends. We, are just great. And guess what? I need to learn from those people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I'm like, I absolutely implore you to take this survey because there's gotta be, something studyable about that. Because if I had read all of these things as a younger mother of a daughter, I think I would have done things differently to social, I don't know. I mean, to be more social or something, you know what I mean? For her sake, or if we know these things, would we raise our children with a different level of awareness or, prioritize? Like I would sort of just think like, well, I'm just friends with these people because we're in the same zip code.
Right.
But, or we're on the same team and then you're going to a different team. Now but maybe I could have been less flippant about it was a zip code thing and been like, no, actually we like each other. We're friends. But that goes back to my childhood of origin story, of friendship. Lisa, like I have a couple friends throughout my life that I've been friends with, but, by and large, we grew up sort of strange. My parents were journalists, and we were raised that words are just words. And so we all swore as little kids, which didn't work well when you're 6 and you go to a birthday party and you say the cake looks like shit. And then you have to go home and you don't know why. And then, you go to school like ashamed. My dad was a prankster all the time. And so when I went from sixth grade into the junior high school, and the coolest girl from school, Kristen, slept over at my house, and she had gone to the other grade school. So it was like the first time you're meeting like new people. And my dad tied a fishing line to a closet door handle, and my bedroom faced this door handle. And then he reeled open the door in the middle of the night and had a bear in there underlit with a flashlight on like a little chair. So you can only imagine how terrifying this was. And my dad used to in laugh. So go, So all of a sudden I had dad in laughing. Kristen starts crying. She wants to call her parents. She wants to go home. And I remember literally calling out to the taillights of their station wagon, like, don't tell anyone at school. Bye. See you Monday. I was just like, so I mean, I was like a freaking freak, and I mean, so like, I literally, I mean, like, I understand that I'm not normal, and I don't have the security of friends that, were like that. I mean, it just, it's just weird. But you don't know you're weird until social circles tell you you're weird, and I'm extroverted and wear cute clothes and things like that. So I think I probably come across a lot more confident than I am. But, making friends has not ever been, easy. I can talk to people, but when are you actually friends?
Did your parents have like long-term friendships that you?
It's funny you should say that. My dad really didn't have any friends. And he was just sort of he was an amazing person. He was a very strange human. But he's a journalist. So he was just fascinated by strangers, always just talking to anybody, hey, my mom was very gossipy and would be on the phone talking to one friend, hang up, call the other friend, tell her what that friend said. And I remember hearing all of this. My mom also at an early age would encourage me to talk about my friends to each other, on a sleepover. She'd say, well, how does Katie feel about Emily? And I go, I don't know. Well, ask her. And then I was okay, get a reputation for like talking about people. And I went home. I remember being like, fuck you, Mom. Like, you told me to do this. And now these girls won't talk to me and they're not friends with me. You told me to do that, so
interesting.
And my mom,
there's some nurture aspect of this, right?
Oh my God. Well, and that's where that question on the survey about your relationship with your mother comes in.
Yeah.
I learned at a very, very young age not to trust my mom with my feelings. And I think that hard coded me to not trust women. And I had brothers. And that's why there's a question on the survey, do you have a sister? Because I have a theory, just a theory. I will be disproving and proving it, that women that have sisters are better at female relationships than women who don't have a sister.
That's interesting, because not that I'm proving or disproving either way, but I would think I have a sister. We're 4 years apart, so we never really went to school together, and we get along. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I'm not even sure she listens to the pod, but that I don't know that I would think of us as being super close, or that our relationship impacts my ability or her ability to have friends. And then Charlotte doesn't have a sister, and she has really good girlfriends. And she's like Carrie, she always has little trios. We laugh about it. She has all these she's always a part of a trio, which I think is really fascinating. But within these trios, there's not usually even any conflict.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, just because I'm curious where this sits, right? So you and I, again, we met in probably 2003, 2004, I want to say. Like Liam and Oscar were probably 18 months to 2 years old.
Yeah. younger maybe, but yeah.
And you were and pretty much everybody with the exception of Haley and Carla no longer live in Chicago. But
Yeah.
like you, me, Haley, Carla, I still talk to Christine. She's in Florida. Again, just sort of over socials, but still,
Yeah.
like if I was going to go down to Florida and I was going to be in her neck of the woods, I would totally hook up with her, right? Like I've seen
Sure.
Haley and Carla, and I think you are even closer to them than I am. So what do you account for that? Like, because you moved back to Minnesota. So how do you account for our relationship?
That's really interesting. And I had, so in addition to having this kind of weird high school existence, and then when I went to college, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school. And I don't say that like, oh, I worked 3 jobs. Like that's what I wanted to do. But I didn't do parties, sororities, like any of that stuff. I had one friend from college only because we both waitressed at the same restaurant, Planet Hollywood, if anyone's out there, Mall America. So Laura and I worked together and we're like, oh, you go to St. Thomas? I do too. And I was like, I have a friend from college. And so, but then my dad got sick right when I graduated. So I was taking care of him, and people just weren't 26, 7 years old taking care of an elderly parent. Then I got married and I moved to Chicago. So Lisa, that's where I met you and all these amazing women. And that was the first time I felt secure
Mm.
because I was like, this is where I live. This is my husband. This is my, baby. And then I had another baby right away. These are my friend groups. We also were doing a dinner club,
Yep.
with another, like, I can't remember how that came about. I think it was somebody in our building and then a few other people.
Yeah,
But
man.
I was like, oh, thank God I'm normal. Okay, I got
Mm.
this. Smooth sailing from here on out. Well, then in the middle of the freaking night, Sean tells me we're moving to Minnesota, uproots me. And I kept saying, can I just stay? Like, can you go do whatever you need? And I'm from Minnesota. And he was like, no, we're going to move there. And I'm like, but I have play group. I've got, and leaving you guys was horrible. It was
Mm.
absolutely awful, to the extent that I remember so distinctly. Carla called and I put her on speaker. So Miles and Oscar could talk to each other, and Carrie, the kids were learning how to like run and talk and, play. And so Oscar, when I'd say we're going to play group, he would say, run, run, Miles, run, run, Theo, run, run, Liam. And that's what
Oh.
he did. So he heard Carla's voice and he went over to the front door where his shoes were and he was saying, run, run, Miles, run, run,
And you're
Miles.
in Minnesota at this
And I
point?
was in Minnesota and I was just sobbing. And I was like, Carla, don't ever call me again. Like, this is horrible. And I lived in the street we were renting while we figured out where we were going to live. And it was a cul-de-sac and I didn't understand cul-de-sac culture because I had just gotten there. And people would put like a lawn chair at the end of their driveway and they'd sit there at the cooler and drink beer or wine and the kids would play. And I was inside my picture window like, look at this shit. I'm not going to make new friends. I'm just like, I am never making a friend again. I am not going through what I went through leaving you guys. And of course that didn't happen because then my kid, makes friends. But that factors carry into the friendship thing because right when I started to feel like, okay, now we're in Minnesota, thanks to like, Lisa, I actually started a play group because of our play group and was like, great, and then I got divorced when, my youngest was 3.
Mm.
So,
So
then
you're getting a lot of pattern interrupts, a lot of
yes,
disruption. Yeah.
yes. And,
You're
people
getting
will
some
say,
foothold and then it's being wiped right out from underneath you.
yeah. And,
Mm.
people will say like, oh, it's no different when you're divorced. And yeah, it is. Try getting divorced. And then you tell me how people don't treat you differently. And
Mm.
people say, well, I don't think any differently of you. I'm like, okay, have you invited me to a dinner party? No,
Yeah.
because they're just for couples. We don't want you to feel awkward. So you just have this separation that sets in, unintentional. They don't, it just is the reality of it. And, looking back really on me because I didn't want to get divorced. I didn't believe in divorce and I didn't want to be a divorcee. So, people would say to me like, oh gosh, you're so nice. And I heard you just got divorced and I'd like to introduce you to someone. And I'd go, okay, I think I'm ready for that. And they go, yeah, because my sister just got divorced and you should meet her.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't want to have the least likable quality of me be the one thing that I have in common with this person.
Mm.
So I never would hang out with divorced women. I didn't want to hear about their stories. I just wanted to work and get through all of the, I mean, 2009 financial collapse. I'm starting a business. I had 3 kids. I mean, I didn't have time for any of that stuff.
That's so interesting to me because friends of mine who went through divorce, like, were really, really drawn to other people who understood what they were going through. So
And in
that's,
hindsight, I really, really regret not doing that. I've met a woman who was divorced around the same time, whose kid played hockey with my kid. We just became friends a couple of years ago. And I was like, why didn't we do this 10 years ago? You
yeah.
know?
I mean,
So
like you said, you're operating at the moment with what feels right for you.
yeah. And what bandwidth I had. And I was venomous. I mean, I didn't want to be around myself, let alone other people.
Mm.
So, that was a big part of it too. Um,
Mm.
And that though ties right back to my friend that I'm now broken up with, because when I sold the business and I had more time and I made an intentional decision to reconnect with her and then really intentionally put time into that friendship. Like I chose that friendship. And that is something that is really important to me. Because I know that I chose to spend that time with that group of women, specifically this one friend. Um, you know, at a time where I was like, we're raised to think friendship is intuitive, that we just know how to do this. And I knew I didn't know how to be a friend. And it's weird to be an adult woman and be like, I don't have any friends, but I do. I mean, I don't say that to be dismissive about my other friends, but I remember driving one time and I was like, I have a best friend.
Mm.
Like it felt so stupidly good. But the other thing that, I was reflecting on with Lisa, I don't know if she ever knew how much she meant to me.
Mm.
Which was one of the questions, which is one of the questions in the survey.
Yeah.
This is a great lead into this question, though, because Carrie and I did do an episode, I don't remember if it was in 2 or 3, where we talked about how hard it is at midlife to make friends, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't have play group. My kids started school. I always joke, like, I do have moms that were Charlotte's friends' moms, but my main friends from my kids' school was Liam, right? Like you go in,
Yeah.
you make all your friends then. So when I moved to LA, I remember thinking like, how am I going to meet anybody? Because the kids are all in grade school and high school. Like you just don't
Yeah.
hang out with moms. So what are you finding from the survey or just your research outside even of the survey about why friendships in this chapter can be both harder, but then when you
Yeah.
get them, like you said, in some ways they're more meaningful. Like what are other women reflecting back to you?
So twofold on the second part of your question about how they can be more meaningful, it does seem like because we're connecting out of shared interest, humor is one of the biggest
Yeah.
things that comes up for people. She made me laugh, or I made her laugh. And that's sort of how they first sort of meet. One woman talks about going into like a function and she had just gone to Whole Foods and got a container of food, but she overfilled it. So she walked in and it was like falling all over. And this other person started laughing, and that was like how they started their friendship. Other people say, I feel like I've made friends as I've aged. Or the friends that I've made as I age are a lot less work to maintain. We seem to understand that
Mm.
sometimes life gets in the way, but we always come back to a place of closeness. Another one says, I think making friends as we get older is 100% doable. I sense with everyone's lives, it's tricky for women to carve out time just to do girls' things. As we get closer to retirement, I have a feeling I'll have more time for new friendships.
Mm.
But another one says, at age 70, I don't have the energy or the motivation to trust anymore.
Oh,
Oh.
Yeah. Other women
Mm.
report saying, they're so much more secure and content in who they are. So I think they can show up more authentically. That word is way overused, but so if you're both showing up like, hey, this is the real me, you've just eliminated a lot of bullshit, right?
Yeah, yeah, for
Um,
sure.
That's
but
super attractive. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think I define my needs of heart depth and connection with good empathy and listening skills, but it's hard to find those connections in others.
Mm. Yeah, you and I
So,
talked about this the other day, Rachel, when we were kind of
yeah,
pre-talking, and I said, I think that I don't, I've lost it. I don't know what I was thinking. Never mind. Go ahead.
Mm.
Menopause.
I was just,
yeah,
I was just gonna say, I'm so deep into this conversation that I've actually lost where we are. But I was just gonna say that, it's so. This is such an interesting experience right now because I think how we listen, how we do this pod is kind of how we try to be as friends in the world. And
yeah,
it's this topic is really hard to like hold a 30-foot lens on because it's so tender, it's so personal.
Yeah.
I mean, I can listen to things about motherhood and marriage with a lot more objectivity than I can about this. So this is just a fascinating, like everything you're saying makes me go, oh. And then I start to think about my kids' friendships, and
Right.
my friend that I've known since I was 13 was over for dinner last night, and our kids are like cousins, and it's gone through a lot of seasons. I answered, some about that, and I'm so grateful for her. And we were part of a trio in high school. We lost touch with somebody that, I guess I would have thought it was because she stayed there and her life was looking a little different. But we realize now it has to do with the person she's now divorcing, like that we really grew apart from her, probably accidentally because maybe he didn't like us, maybe we didn't like him. I don't
yeah,
know. But like
yeah.
all these things are hard not to like get distracted and go into that right now. So like look what you're doing for people. Like this is just medicine.
It
Thank
is.
you.
Yeah.
And one of the most, I think, difficult to read parts of the survey for me, just because it's like I just want to call everyone that fills out the survey. But there is a part where it says, are there any lifestyle things that have separated your friendship or brought you closer together? But marriage, moving, divorce, are
Politics.
a big part of it. Politics, vaccination issue, all those things.
Yeah.
But another kind of sneaky one is lifestyle choices. So cosmetic surgery, weight loss, Ozempic, weight loss, weight
Interesting.
gain, because when we change, so like Kari, you mentioned having a partner. So now you have to be friends with me and my husband. But if our husbands don't get along, we'll do stuff individually, but we're not going to do couples trips. And, so it like the complexity gets a little bit murky. But then let's say
Huh.
we're both large ladies that love to go to a buffet and a movie, and that's our thing. No, a movie that has food in it. So you're just sitting there eating, and that's our favorite thing to do. And you're my special friend, and we do that. And then I go on Ozempic. All of a sudden, I've lost a ton of weight and interest in doing that. I want to be out being more active. So one friendship just fractured, but the perception of the one who's still, eating the nachos at the movie is that the thin friend has a whole new life and all new friends. Da, 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 da. Well, the thin friend is like, now I have no friends because I don't assimilate to this world,
Yeah.
So the layers of complexity for us as we make different lifestyle choices or things, it makes it more and more and more difficult to maintain those friendships.
Well, and we talked, you and I did touched on this a little bit. You mentioned Al-Anon, and I said I wondered too if part of this fracture between you and your friend was that because you said in a different pre-Al-Anon, you would have been like, you would have been on the phone, you would have been maybe knocking on her door and going, let's figure this out. Like, what did I do wrong? How can I be better? And because you have done some personal growth, maybe that was one of the things, right? So I think I know as coaches, and certainly when we were coaching students who were coming up as coaches, we saw that a lot. We would see that a lot at our big retreats for the company that we worked for, where women were standing up and being like, I've changed so much. My husband doesn't understand me. My friends don't understand me. I feel so alone in this. And these retreats would be the moment where they were like, oh, crap, thank God I'm not alone anymore. So
Yeah.
even personal growth when one does and one doesn't, or the perception is one has and one hasn't.
Yeah.
Can I build on a piggyback on that?
Yeah.
Because when we were like in our training, in coaching training, and also just in our development as humans and as we parent and try to teach our kids better than we learned, one of our mentors like really described this well, right? Because when you're coaching people going through transformation, different types of transformation, they sometimes stay stuck because they're afraid of losing the people that love them the way they are.
Yep.
And so she described it as this elastic that like as a young struggling actor, making it was scary because she didn't want to be rejected by the group that like we're in the struggle together. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she also, I don't know if it was her or not, or if it was Stacey, but like there's this, I think it was Stacey talked about there's friends who support you, there's friends who sabotage you, and there's friends that stretch you. And you would immediately think supportive friends are the best, but they sometimes are the ones that keep you stuck because they like really reaffirm just all the ways that you are. And the ones that are like willing to show up and sometimes piss you off, but stretch you and give you really honest feedback, those are the friends that you go the distance with. And actually, even the saboteurs might be less harmful than the supporters, and depending on the type of support. Yeah. So anyway, those two things just came up listening to that.
Yeah, no, and that's completely tracks also because I've now crossed over the 3 years in Al-Anon to deal with a lot of substance abuse from people that were supposed to be parenting me. And, things that just everyone's got their stuff, right? So one of the things they say when you get there, though, is that all of your relationships will change. The bad ones will get better and some of the good ones will go away. And you will have to understand that. She did take a lot of jabs at like, oh, you're in a cult or, things like that. Because I did start changing. I recognized that I grew up as a people pleaser. Middle child, Gemini, only daughter. As long as everything was fine, everything was fine. And it was like my role to make everything fine. Something that I realize is I'm deeply insecure. So, and if somebody had said that to me in high school, I'd be like, bitch, I'll cut you. Like, I'm not insecure. But really insecure is I had nothing I could hold on to that was safe.
Mm-hmm.
And, so Lisa, that's like Chicago to me was like, okay, that's safe. Okay. That's fine. Okay, this, it's difficult, but going through that and recognizing that I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so I didn't grovel. I didn't go over there. I didn't say, what did I do wrong? I'll change. I'll do this. I was like, okay, this is where we are now. This is a her thing. Which isn't to say I didn't have, okay, I'm getting this fun shadow on I look like a square head. I didn't have, the bandwidth to go do that because I recognized that I had changed,
Right.
But the program also taught me about, it's called the 4 M's. Let's just go this way. So it's motherhood, managing, manipulating, and martyrdom. And I realized that I was a classic manipulator. And I think we say, like, that's so hard to say out loud, but we think of manipulation as like a bad thing, like, oh, you're manipulating. But I would manipulate positive things.
Right. I've heard about this.
Try to make everyone happy.
Right.
And you don't think about it as manipulation, but it fucking is.
Yep.
And so I was conflict averse. I'm not going to, get anyone riled up. I'm just going to keep the peace. And where I really have the most deep regrets and when I say, I could have been better, I wish that I had taken her aside during the early days when she was making those little jabs about Al-Anon or things like that, because also she was my fixer. Like, and I had a few fucking life falling apart moments. Like, she's like right there, like, where do we need to hide the body? So I wish that I had told her what she meant to me. But I also wish that I had also said, like, just because I don't need you to clean up my messes anymore doesn't mean I don't need you.
Yeah, there you go. God damn, right there. Mic drop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Can we?
that's what I thought when you said she's the fixer. I was like, oh, shoot, Rachel was fixing herself. She didn't feel
Oh,
needed anymore.
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
nailed it.
And I
Can
got
we?
married, so then I wasn't the single mom,
Right.
in distress. So anyway, so
Mm.
what was you saying?
Mm. Sorry, I didn't. I was just starting to jump ahead. Because you mentioned the manipulation. Can we talk about the other quiet eroders that you refer to? Because I think this is so
Um,
fascinating.
yeah, managing.
Hmm.
So basically taking control of every situation. Martyrdom.
Which she did, it sounds like. If she's a fixer, that she would
Yeah,
maybe fall under managing, right?
Mm.
definitely, definitely,
And
definitely. And
these are these aren't you, right? Or like we're not sort of like we talk about the saboteurs and it's like that's
Mhm.
a something that we are doing. It's not us, right? Like we don't want to like
Right,
embody this as like, oh, I'm bad because I'm a manager, right? Like fixers are great sometimes.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we talked about too, I mean, like people don't ruin things, behaviors ruin things.
Right.
Mm.
So, in this situation too, like, managing is a form of control.
Right.
And there was a lot of times where I was like, I'm not going to say her name. I'll call her Gina, but I'll say, Gina, take the wheel. And I was like, whatever and she was really fucking smart and funny and could figure out anything. So there's a lot of moments where I'm like, yeah, she can figure it out because she'll figure it out. And I go, whatever she said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so martyrdom is another thing. Like, woe is me, poor me. It's all about me. It's so ego driven. Which is where I wallowed for a while. Like, why is this happening to me? Everyone leaves me. What? Okay, now stop being an idiot and look at it. Right. So the four M's: so manipulation, managing, martyrdom, and um,
Motherhood?
mothering.
What's
Yeah.
oh mothering? What's that one?
So that's being parental. And that was one
Oh,
of the challenges, in our relationship too. I actually was making a note about that because, when let's say we want to share with someone that they're doing something or undermining us or feeling like this, my challenge is like, how do I do that without being condescending? I have resting bitch face. So I think I come across condescending when really I'm not. I'm also like, some people are verbal processors. I'm a facial processor. So I'll like,
mm,
I'm like, well, and people are like, what's that look for? And I'm like, because I was trying to make it make sense. Like I was just
mm.
thinking out facially, you know. um, but so, how do we express that without being condescending or parental in our
Interesting.
communication? Like, I'd like to give you some feedback. Like, we're not raising our friends,
Right.
Yeah.
and so
So
that's where that
interesting.
that maternal one comes in. Like, how do we do that? And so if we can't communicate that someone's being insensitive or possessive or controlling, we don't say anything. Or worse, we talk to other people about it, and then we're fucked.
Mm.
So I mentioned the saboteurs. You and I, when we had dinner and when you were here in LA, I mentioned that I was going to send you that. I have yet to do it, the survey around what saboteurs are, although you've already self diagnosed as people pleaser, but they do very much line up with this, right?
Mhm.
The martyrdom is the victim. And so again, it's interesting. We probably all have these on some level. And so it's
For
not
sure.
about feeling bad about having any of these. They can when we talk about our positive intelligence course that we took, our saboteurs are our greatest strengths overused. So again, there can be times when the manager is so helpful in a situation, right? Or
Yes.
the mother is
Totally.
so helpful in the situation. Even as you said, manipulating sounds like a horrible thing to say, but you were manipulating for the quote unquote good of everyone. I mean,
Right.
I
According to
remember
my
hearing
my
about
version
that
of
for
it, but yeah.
right, the sort of codependency thing of it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Are again, from what you've learned,
Hmm.
are women more likely to feel judged or to judge themselves or to because again the number one saboteur is the judge and it's a judge of self, judge of others, judge of situations. So what are you noticing? Are women saying I judge myself for this situation, I'm judging my friends for this situation, or I'm judging the friendship?
That's particularly interesting because when I ask people in the survey if they think they're a good friend,
Yeah.
Mm.
most people think they're a great friend.
I'm
Carrie almost
certain
spit
I
out her
answered it that
water.
way.
I
I'm certain I was
Most,
like, I'm awesome.
don't think
yeah,
I said I really try, and sometimes I can be, and other times I think I'm failing at it. So I don't know.
That sounds like
yeah,
you.
yeah. So that was really interesting because at some point we have to flip the mirror, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people respond that they have good intentions, but they might not have enough time, you know. So the follow through on that is, okay, so do you communicate that I wish I had more time, or I, you know, that kind of a thing. So I don't know that I can conclusively answer that yet, but it does look like trending towards people thinking that it's not them, it's the other person,
Mm.
which,
Interesting.
you know, is sort of, I guess, human nature to an extent.
What I love about this, though, is you have, what you said, between like 100 and 200 responses already. And this
Mhm,
is only the
mhm.
beginning. And spoiler alert, we'll be putting the link to this. We want everyone who hears this episode to take this survey for sure. But I think it's going to be fascinating if it continues. The trends you're already seeing at this point, if these trends continue.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be following up and want to hear more about this.
Oh my
Thank you.
gosh.
And I'm excited too. And, you know, one of the things that I think we live in a world right now where anyone can just say anything and it just goes like unchecked and it's what it
Right.
is. Um, but that isn't necessarily the way we used to live in the world. And
Right.
the data is really important to me because I think there's just enough rhetoric out there that sort of these bucket, you know, groups of people are like this, or these people are like
Mm-hmm.
that, or women are like this, or single women are like that. And with some meat on the bone with the data, we'll get a little bit more clarity in how we can have these conversations and having somebody, nobody wants to be the first person on the dance floor. So getting out there saying, I'm insecure. My best friend doesn't like me. Hi, my name is Rachel. Like, but
Yeah.
okay, it's out there. Now it's
Yep.
been said. Anybody else um, is important. The other thing, the research is really important to me that it stays clean and uncorrupted by a corporate influence.
Mm.
So I say that because, for example, a survey that had been done on best friends, and I only found it because I was like trying to research my way through healing, and I just couldn't find the right data. But it was done by Travelocity,
Mm.
and they, you know, did a survey about best friends. Then they concluded that best friends are better friends when they travel together. So
Wow.
that exactly. And that, to be perfectly clear, that is not research, that is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the survey, there is an opportunity to donate, you know, a processing fee of $4.99, or you can throw another $10 in there. But that is only because this is the only thing that I'm doing. I'm putting everything into this to really deeply understand it, without being like, oh, and shop at Free People, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's just like,
Friends who shop together.
right, right.
I will say,
Um,
friends who share a hotel room, like they
Yeah.
find out a lot about each other.
Yes, we do.
yeah. Um,
Good things.
yeah. So I'm very excited to be here on the show. Thank you, both of you, for giving me the platform to share about the Best Friend Project. And it's really just barely the beginning. So
It is just unbelievable how many things we didn't get to. So we absolutely have to do a part two, like really soon, as you keep doing more of this. I love that we're gonna get this out early in our season as we are, and that people are gonna take it. And I would love, love, love to get you back for more of these questions and other stuff, because it's opening
It'd be
up
fun
so
to have
many
you
doors
again in
and
like
hallways.
yeah,
August or something,
Yeah.
because this is coming out. This is our second episode of the season 4. So this is early January. It'd be interesting to do 6 months from now. So
yeah,
let's just kind of pencil that in because you're right. I mean, we have so many questions we didn't even get to.
yeah.
I
And
also,
I'm
oh,
so
go ahead.
curious what's going to happen.
Also, like, I'm now shamelessly going to do something you didn't want to do, but like honestly, like we were going to talk about a little more deeply about friendship in midlife, and I agree. I agree from observing it, and I have a lot of people in my life who've moved. And I think if Lisa wasn't the way Lisa is and hadn't networked and like done the kind of friendship she gets through working remotely, you would have had that trouble moving to LA from Chicago. Like
Oh,
if
absolutely no question.
so, like I have been here 27 years, and so I realized like taking that last night, like, oh my gosh, context is everything and circumstances and all of that. And what you made me realize, which I is going to sound like a plug now, but honestly, at our retreats, women,
Mm.
I've seen women become like best friends that didn't know each other. We
Oh,
just
no
had to
question.
go away to Aruba together that didn't know
Yeah.
each other before
I love
a year
that.
ago. So
People
I'm
are
just,
flying from Chicago to Palm Springs in a way, they met
yeah.
in Chicago and 3 days,
And
not even
honestly,
three
like
days.
we didn't set out to say we need to bring women together to be best friends. But what we did say was everything that women are going through alone will feel so much better and help them really in whatever they're working on if they're in the room with other women. And I think the catalyst for becoming actual friends and not just participating in a retreat, and I'm not saying everyone left like, swinging hands and stuff, but the catalyst is that it's an intense amount of time and we help them kind of connect ahead of time, and because they are put in pairs to be really vulnerable and share some things, it like sort of fast tracks it. So
Yeah.
I do like the idea that like, it's not like, I don't mean everyone should go to a retreat or everyone should travel together, but I do like the idea that there are ways to actually find friends is my
Yeah.
point. And I'm glad
What?
we've seen it.
And I would say that this is a different way of doing this. And not making friends, but your project, what I think is ties in is one of the things that's so powerful at our retreats is that the amount of time one person says at a retreat, ABC, and then every other woman in the retreat goes, yep, oh yeah, yep, yep, yep. And
Mhm.
that person, up until that moment, thought they were the only one. They were
Yeah.
being vulnerable by telling a story, thinking, oh, everybody's going to judge me. This is so bad. And then all the people go, oh shit. So when you start this podcast and when
Mhm.
you put this book out, it's going to be that moment of healing for women because they realize they're they're not the only one where a friendship went awry. And it
No.
Yeah.
and it wasn't there. Maybe they had a piece in it, and they had a big piece, or they had a small piece. But I feel like that's one of the things that's why I was like, oh shit. When you and I were talking about this, I was like, holy hell, this is going to be a movement because it is going to be so healing for women. And nothing is more important right now in this world than women heal and we get together and we
Yeah.
realize that what society has been telling us, that we are natural enemies, is not fucking true. Because as long as we keep believing that, then the men and the patriarchy get to rule us. They get to
Mhm.
Yeah.
keep us down. But as soon as we learn that we are fucking amazing and we're fucking amazing together and all,
Yeah.
tides
Mhm.
lift all boats. Oh, watch
Mhm.
out, patriarchy. Bye bye.
So
Yeah.
true. I love that.
Yeah.
And also, honestly, if you were like someone like you was at one of our retreats, you would hear how many people thought they were weird growing up or who have sister
Totally.
wounds or
Yep.
like some of the best reflections we've ever had is about, and I don't just mean our retreats, I mean things like this, but like I didn't know
Mhm.
I could trust women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge. Yep. Yeah.
That's a major thing. And it's, we were out to dinner with my husband and one of his friends, and I had mentioned, or John had mentioned to his friend about this, and he told his wife, and the wife, so then we sit down to have dinner with this guy, and I think they're just going to talk about golf, and I brought my laptop because I was just going to work while they talked, and the husband wanted to talk all about how his daughter, his wife, and daughter-in-law, when a woman walked in a restaurant, they all were like, oh, look at, and he's like, why are you commenting on all this stuff? And he's like, I have seen women be awful to each other. And his wife is one of the nicest people on the planet. Like, she's not doing it to be mean. She's just like, well, why would she wear that skirt if it's so short? Or it just,
Right.
at least what you're saying, it's like we have
Mhm.
been just conditioned to just do that. And one thing that it stood out so dramatically, like I mentioned, the Reese Witherspoon event, I have never been in an area with so many women that were nonstop, like, love your shoes, love your hair, cute bag. And they meant it.
Yeah.
And
I remember you
mean,
telling me that at dinner. You were like, I have never experienced this in my life.
That's
it was
awesome.
like, and then I started doing it. And then, but it wasn't like weird or anything. And you've got people walking around with selfie sticks and whatever. And they're like, hey, do you want to get in my picture? And it was so much fun. And then contrasted to, I went to the Texas Women's Conference. And it was like head down, no one talking to each other, people walking around in groups. And I mean, complete night and day. So I do think that that was proof to me that we can cultivate and foster environments where women feel safe, are nurtured, are supported, are secure, because I've seen it done. And you guys do it with your retreats and all the incredible work for years that you've been doing to raise women up and bring us together. So thank you again for all the work that you do and for inviting me to share this part of the story.
Well, I'm super psyched to have you back. I'm just gonna go ahead and send you the calendar link so we can get you on the calendar.
I know.
Perfect.
Before we do the song, or were you gonna do the song? Sorry.
I was actually
Jumping
just
in.
going to say, what's your greatest hope with this?
Love it.
Oh, my anyway. Ooh, my greatest hope is that we are able to start having the difficult conversations. Selfishly, my greatest hope is that I never have to go through this again. The broader hope is that it helps other people not go through it again as well.
Those are three very, very good hopes that I think are entirely possible. Entirely possible. I am so proud of you, and I just think this is amazing. I am honored. I'll speak for Kari that we're on the ground floor of this with you because
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, as I said, I think this is going to be a movement. Um, I love the song you chose, Rivers and Roads by Head and the Heart. Oh, I was so
Well, it's a
excited.
little dramatic, but I was like, well,
No, my God, I love that song so much. What is it about that song?
it was about the moving,
Yeah.
and right now I'm in Dallas, and I really want anybody listening to this, if you haven't moved, like Kari, you've been there for 27 years, you might meet someone who's new and you don't know what they're going through, but maybe this will help you go like, oh wait, they're new. Like, even just seeing familiar faces at the grocery store or the gym don't happen to me while I'm in Dallas. And I'm
Yeah.
suffering from all this insecurity, and I don't have a best friend,
Yeah.
So when I heard that song, I was just like, yeah, no, this is it. So
Love that song.
So, Rachel, we're going to we're going to be promoting this. It's going to be in our social media and in the show notes. But for people just listening in their car and they want to remember to look it up later, where can people find the Best Friend Project survey and like learn more and participate?
awesome. It is thebestfriendproject.co. So CO, no M, just .co. And you can get it through there, or Rachel Swardson on Instagram, or the best underlined friend project on Instagram.
Which we will be collaborating with her
Yeah.
all week. So you'll be able to follow her because it'll be on all of our socials. Um, I'm so glad we're friends. I'm so glad after
Oh,
all
cool.
this time. I mean, just to wrap this up, we are the kind of friends where, like, I mean, we were friends on obviously 22 years ago, 21 years ago, where we saw each other weekly, and then socials just sort of lent itself to the way it did. We've been trying to get together, the four of us, Haley, Carla, you and I.
Yeah.
But in general, it's just like what I love about our friendship and all four of us. I saw Carla a couple years ago. Haley's got a kid out here going to college, so I got to see her recently. I got to see you recently. And I think I really know, like, I expected you and I to get to talking because I wanted to hear about the Reese Witherspoon thing. We had a lot of time about, but even Haley and I, we talked nonstop for like 3 hours. And I just love a friendship that we can go for years, decades. And it was
Yeah.
like we just left playgroup yesterday. And so
Yeah.
I'm just really grateful for all four of you, the three of you, the four of us, and that interaction and the way that we show up for each other. And I'm just so happy to support you on all of this.
Okay, but Kari, back me on this. I think Lisa, that's a huge part because of who you are. Like you're
Totally.
such a good networker. You're just like no time, because I have some friends who are like, oh yeah, I haven't talked to you in 5 years. Nice of you to finally call. Or, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm never calling you again. But, like you're just like, hi, we haven't talked, but here, so I think it's a big testament to you. So I'm grateful that we're still friends. So,
Well, thank you. I love that. All right, we are having you back. So stay tuned for part 2 in about 6 months when she has even more juicy data, because this has been an incredibly rich conversation. Um, any final words, Kari, Rachel?
I'm just so grateful. And this is like definitely the beginning of a really good reflective awareness for me and my friendship. So I'm so grateful to you.
oh, geez, thank you so much.
Excellent. All right, everyone, go look in the show notes for the Best Friend Project. Please fill out that survey. And I would invite you to fill it out when you have a minute. Like, it's not a very long survey. It doesn't take a ton of time, but I think, I want you to have the experience. It's a very rich experience to do this survey. So really put some nice music on, have a cocktail, have a coffee, a tea, and like experience doing this survey. Don't just do the survey. And then we'll be back next week with something else we know. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Bye.